Dr. RJB, and I wanted to talk a little bit about hearing loss. As people get older, it's not uncommon for people to have problems with their hearing. Uh, the aging of the hearing system can occur and make it difficult for the older person to have proper hearing. Like I said, it's a very common problem for hearing loss to occur as people become older. So, what's the issue with hearing loss? There are a few things that have to occur for the sound to be heard as a sound inside. We have ears that funnel the hearing into the ear canal. These capture the sound, and like I said, move it to the hearing canal and then to the eardrum. The eardrum with sound will vibrate. So if you have a problem with the eardrum, already you got a difficulty. Let's just say somebody who's had infections of the ear and their eardrum has been scarred up, it may not vibrate properly. After the eardrum comes the bones of the middle ear. They're called the hammer, the anvil, and the stirrup, which is basically malleus, incus, and stapes. Those are the Latin names for these bones. They are connected in a chain, 1, 2, 3, between the outer eardrum and the inner eardrum. There's another eardrum in the middle ear, which also has to vibrate. And so between the outer eardrum and the inner eardrum, there are these 3 bones which connect the 2 eardrums together. So the vibration of the outer eardrum is taken by the 3 bones in chain until it gets to the inner eardrum. Now, the inner eardrum is actually smaller than the outer eardrum, but it's connected to another system, which has fluid in it. So the fluid then transmits it to an area where we have hair cells. The hairs then will vibrate as this fluid moves. And that vibration of the hair cells is transmitted to the nerve. These hair cells are connected to the cells that are attached to the nerve. Then the sound impulse is transmitted to the nerve, to the auditory area of the brain, so that we can hear things. If anything along this way is a problem, it can also be an issue. Now, one of the things that happens with aging is arthritis. So these 3 little bones that are in the middle ear, between the outer eardrum and the inner eardrum, they can develop arthritis too. So if you have arthritis of those bones, they're not going to transmit the sound properly. And this is one of the problems with hearing loss, is that sometimes these bones are so arthritic that they don't transmit the impulse properly. Then after the middle eardrum, there can be problems with the fluid, maybe not having enough fluid. And then we go to the hair cells. And unfortunately, with aging, the number of these hair cells decreases. Now, just like other parts of the body, cells get old and they die, and not every place in the body does the body replace this. So let's just talk about us men with hair on the head. We are familiar with the fact that as we get older, we have less hair than when we were younger. And the same thing happens with these hair cells, actually. That some of these hair cells are lost with aging. If you don't have a proper number of hair cells in the proper place, you can have a problem with your hearing. And so this is one of the causes of hearing loss. Now, in men, one of the things that can be lost is the high tones. As we get older, our ability to perceive high tones is less. One of the things that I've read about is that sometimes teachers are unaware of what the students are doing because the students are using high tones. One of the tricks supposedly was that if they want to text each other, there's a sound that the text produces, but they can choose a sound that's so high frequency that only they can hear it. So let's just say, the frequency that the teacher can hear is below 20,000 cycles per second, but the students can hear at 30 cycles per second. So they can choose a sound that is extremely high that the teacher cannot hear. And at that point, the teacher will not even appreciate that there's a sound going on, and the children can send their text message without being perceived by the teacher. Once people get older, even this high frequency is lost. So a frequent male problem is high frequency loss. So their ability to hear things at moderate levels, moderate frequencies is still there, but their high frequency is lost. The problem with high frequency tone loss is that most of the consonants in a word are high frequency. So when we say s, the S sound, it's actually a high frequency, or k, the K sound, it's actually a high frequency. What's the problem with this? Well, just take a word like, say, truck. If you get rid of all the consonants, you just have a U. What's the word? Who knows? So if you're not appreciating the t, the r, the k sound, you don't have much to go on. And that's part of the problem. Now, I have high frequency loss, and there have been times when I've been places where somebody was talking and I see their lips moving, but I can't tell what they're saying. As a matter of fact, years ago, I had to break up one of with the grandkids with my wife. We went over to the house, and my wife was talking to my daughter. Her husband was whispering in my ear from about 6 inches away. My wife turned toward me. She says, "You know, he can't hear you." And I couldn't. I didn't even know he was standing there. So that's how bad high frequency loss can be. A whisper is also another high frequency tone. So whispering doesn't work for me. You got to speak. Okay, so this is some of the things that go on with hearing loss. Now, women can have other problems with their hearing than high frequency loss, but eventually all of us are going to have some issue as we get older. So hearing aids are important if you do have hearing loss. Just a word of advice.